Okay. All right. I'm Paul Kirby with the Daily Freeman. We're here with Mayor Shayne Gallo in his office at City Hall, and we appreciate the mayor giving us time to do this live stream, kind of a 6-month update on how's he doing, basically. And anybody who's got questions can write them on in. My computer expert, Yvonne Lahara, is here to field those questions, and we'll ask them as they come in, and we got some of our own. But we thank the mayor for being with us, and why don't we start out with just a kind of a summary of how you think things are going for the past 6 months. Elected in November, took office in January.
Well, good morning, Paul, and I want to thank you and the Daily Freeman, for this live stream and an opportunity to give the residents an update of what's been going on in the last 6 months since being sworn in January 1. When I took office, we set forth an ambitious agenda, to say the least. We hit the ground running with regard to the demand on the part of the public to restructure government and to provide services in a transparent and a more accountable manner. We know we've had our problems in the Kingston Fire Department, presently subject to an audit by the state controller. We've had our issues, with claimants, and their tax grievances, developers, who we all know who they are. And essentially from that, we've been very fortunate to stimulate economic development in the city with regard to the Colony Liquor Project. Wolfpack and Stavo, we're going to be moving into that site on Foxwell Avenue. I began negotiating that agreement and project prior to being sworn in January. It's 150 jobs and 50 more to be expanded over the next 18 months. We've consolidated tourism with the county, thereby providing us with additional revenue to be able to advertise our events, which we're in progress of doing the same. I've recommended different pieces of legislation to address quality of life issues with regard to code enforcement. Also, too, we just had this week the opening of the Youth Bureau, where we established the Hodge Center. Very excited about that with Chief Dinty's doing a marvelous job. It's just a continuation of community policing that he and I had talked about last summer. And I had asked him that if I was elected, that he consider putting back into place the Youth Bureau, and he did exactly that. We have continued with a number of projects that we're seeking funding for, be it the promenade, on the ABR site. We have also, we're working on the rail trail project from Strand to East Chester Street, which I'm confident it will happen, and we will obtain the funding for it after due diligence is undertaken by the Land Trust with regard to that project. Just as a good feel-good, established a beautification committee to be able to beautify and plant flowers and clean the city in certain areas. Effie Larios is back on the scene to try to raise some money for that purpose. She's in the process of speaking to a landscaper to identify areas of Kingston that are in need of cleanup and beautification, for instance, the medians throughout the city. I've got a senior committee we started, and I'm very pleased that the senior committee, we're going to put music back in the parks at Academy Green and down at the waterfront. Principal Adrian Manuel has been very cooperative to provide us with the KHS Jazz Band for those events, as well as the Hibernians, Bill Carney, working with to have the Hibernians perform at those sites. We've got so much going on, and I'm King's Inn, for instance, and Uptown Parking Garage, we're going to be putting out proposals within the next 6 months to a year. My goal is to get those sites shovel ready prior to issuing the proposals for a developer to consider. First, to ensure that we can move forward in an efficient manner and avoid the sins of the past where developers bog down, in the red tape of government, the planning process. In the meantime, at King's Inn, I'm very pleased to say that we have put in shrubs and plant. We're in the process of putting in planters and benches and parking for UPAC. We're going to have one of our movies under the stars. We have a movie under the stars program starting at the end of June, I believe. And it will, in August, there's going to be a movie at that site. Now, during the day, I'm going to arrange for a block party and shut down Broadway to from Cedar Street to Henry. And the idea would be to bring together the neighborhood to show the diversity of Midtown, its people, its ethnicity, its food, and we'll have entertainment during the day. We're also, and a movie in the evening, and we're also working on, hopefully with a target date of August, in the interim when Kingston, having a Midtown Farmers Market. Okay, hopefully we'll be having it on a Tuesday, late afternoon into the early evening.
On that spot.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we're coming up, Jen Fuentes and I are working on ideas, and we're going to be speaking with Gallo, with partnering with certain rehab programs, and we've got some interesting ideas Jen and I are approaching with regard to helping those on fixed incomes who are property owners address some of the exterior improvements, okay, of their homes. And we're working with the funding we have from Housing and Urban Development that's provided the Community Development Agency here in Kingston to be able to facilitate this program for our residents.
Okay.
So basically, as you can see, and I can keep going on, it's a snapshot.
Right.
We're very busy, very pleased. And I want to thank our department heads, and I want to thank our employees, because we couldn't be doing this without our department heads who are doing a marvelous job with the resources they have. So the employees and the department heads deserve a lot of credit, because I'm getting positive feedback. The city looks better, it's cleaner, it's safer in some instances. There's just a different vibe and a different energy because people are feeling good about their city. It's the state's first capital, and I'm proud to be its mayor, and that's why we're having 4th of July on July 4th.
On July 4th this year, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, one thing you didn't mention was I hear around that you're being raffled off or something. You want to?
Yeah, I was raffled off a few months ago with an event for the family court daycare from the YWCA, and this evening Rupco's having its fundraising event, and myself and I believe Elliot Auerbach are going to be auctioned off. I'm wondering now. I was told that I'm going to allegedly be raking leaves for someone or doing work for them around their yard, or if it's a restaurant owner, I might be waiting on tables.
Kind of a lawn boy, a lawn guy.
That is correct.
Yes, okay.
That is correct.
Good for you. Okay, one of the bigger issues, I guess, that's happened in the past 6 months in the city is this hospital matter, with the threat of one of them closing. And I'm wondering how you think this whole situation has been handled by the hospitals themselves. Do you think they've been public enough about this? You've had said if one of them closes, will be devastating to the city. Well, how do you think this has been handled? We
had opportunity. I had established Business Advisory Council with 30 to 35 businesses and professionals within the city. And at a recent meeting, Dave Lundquist, from the Health Alliance, spoke. And I think the answer to your question is they're doing the best they can given the circumstances and given the lack of real clear information from the federal government as to whether we will be redesignated for the Metro Index, where we lost, as you know, $80 million over the last 8 years.
Right.
We're talking 1,800 people who are working in Kingston at the 2 campuses. You're talking $100 million annual payroll. You have a $300-some million regional economic impact if these campuses, one or both, God forbid, will be shut. The problem that the Health Alliance has, from what I understand, and after our council meeting, we met with his management team and Dave to strategize as to how we could mobilize the community and business community, the residents, to try to persuade, if you will, Senator Schumer and our federal officials to redesignate us, to give us that Metro Index status that Dutchess County has. Because what happens right now is there's outsourcing. We're losing personnel every other month to Dutchess County Hospital and healthcare providers. The other problem is that Dave had identified is that in our discussion, in terms of mobilizing support, we have to identify the changes in the healthcare system. Very competitive, groups of physicians are joining together to provide one-stop healthcare services. And there's a complex that's being built out in town of Ulster across from Adams. Now, albeit it may provide 200 jobs locally, it is draining our doctors from the Kingston community. It's going to have an effect on our seniors and those who are poor, who don't have adequate transportation, and who now have access to their health care providers within the city's central area. And you take that into account. The state has to also, according to Health Alliance officials, and this is where it gets back to whether they do have enough information. to really be able to make decisions as to what's going to be done with the facility's future, both campuses. The state has to weigh in to determine whether or not certain services will be continued or discontinued.
Or not.
Behavioral services, for instance, we have 2,400 behavioral patients between Kingston and throughout Ulster. So it's a significant issue that if the campus is shut and that service is discontinued, those individuals are going to be without services, and it's unlikely they'll be shipped over to Dutchess County.
So you've looked at this. It sounds like you pretty much studied and looked at this issue pretty closely. You got any? If you had a guess, which one? If they had a closed one, which one do you think it would be?
I couldn't, because I said to Dave, see, Benedictine right now is where the inpatient admissions and has parking, and there was quite a bit of construction at that campus. Kingston, I had said to Dave, well, what about the idea of making Kingston your ambulatory outpatient, maybe specialty campus? There's been talk where maybe it could be a senior care campus. I had spoken to a doctor locally from the Institute of Family Medicine, Dr. Kellum, and he's in contact with Mr. Lundquist and the Health Alliance officials to ascertain what the facility next door here to City Hall, this campus, could provide in terms of services. So it's my understanding, however, that at the end of this month, I think it's the end of this month, June 28th or the 29th, Paul, here at City Hall, we're having a public forum. Mr. Lundquist asked to use this as a venue.
Yes, we
and
just
they met recently with Kevin Cahill, Assemblyman Cahill, and Kevin Cahill also recommended.
Yeah, what do you think of that? What do you think?
I think it's positive. In fairness to the Assemblyman, he's a former board member of the Benedictine. He's worked diligently for that campus's interests over the years. He's very concerned with the effect it'll have on the city's economy, and I know he's doing everything he can on the state level to ensure that they receive some kind of funding or some kind of assistance from the Department of Health to be able to continue, the operation of both campuses.
Just to another topic, you mentioned the community policing and police chief Tinty. How do you think that's going? In some circles, I've covered police before, and community policing can sometimes get expensive because it's cops walking around doing on the beat and stuff. Is it going okay as far as you're looking at his budget? Are things working out all right?
It's not only going okay, he's amazing. And he's a testament to the old statement by many where we couldn't do community policing for the reasons you stated, because it's going to increase taxes and more tax dollars will be spent and maybe for no positive results. What the chief has done is take a look at his crime statistics and then ascertain the resources to go to those particular areas where there's those high level of offenses, be it gang or drug-related activity. For instance, in Midtown, you have over 50% of our calls are dispatched to Midtown. So the chief has taken personnel, shuffled them around, reallocated them to those spots. What he's also done is he's created an environment where, from what I understand in talking to the personnel, the police officers like going to work every day. Because what he does is he allows them to rotate in different assignments. So he's not spending any more tax dollars. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get a few bucks back from him because of his proper fiscal management for this year. And he also is constantly trying to use the social media to improve the quality of the community policing and the reconnect. The Youth Bureau isn't costing us any money. It's a matter, again, of reallocating personnel. We got our bike patrol up and running, I believe, through a donation, which will be working out of the Hodge Center. So it's exciting, and what we would like to do, as you know, we're trying to, I'm still working with Bank of America. And
how's that going?
Where it's moving in the right direction. We're going to be going at the end of the month to see Senator Schumer. I've spoken with Jen Fuentes of Community Development. There's quite a bit of funding in HUD at low interest rates, which should be very favorable. And
yes, just for people who don't know, you're talking about the possibility of putting a police station at the Bank of America.
And the idea would be there's 15 to 20 unoccupied storefronts right now. You've got UPAC and 721 that are anchors for the business digital artist corridor that really is starting to flourish, on Broadway. So the idea would be also, by having the presence there, it would affect just the quality of life in Midtown, not only from an economic stimulus, but also, the King's Inn parcel. just economically would be worth a lot more. It's
If
a
the
very
town's stable
valuable,
in it.
that is correct.
A lot of money though for that, right? I mean, it's valued at $1.7 million or
But see,
something like that.
here's what people have to understand.
Yeah.
Bank of America has filed a claim to reduce its assessment. It's gonna get it very well, probably, at the end of the day. It's gonna take
Because it's
time.
empty.
Well, no, it's when you compare their assessment, when they use their comps, and their appraisal's okay for that process. So, my response to that is that whoever purchases that building is going to very well end up receiving a reduction in their assessment and their payment of taxes.
Right.
So, that said, that's why I think that for the city to take it, it's win-win for economic development, it's win-win to address quality of life in that particular part of Kingston. And I'll tell you, the residents in Midtown, at the Youth Bureau opening the day before yesterday, it was very pleasing to see how many showed up on a rainy day. And there were a lot of adults who came over and they thanked Chief Tinty and I because they feel that they're not being recognized in terms of quality of life and safety. So it's the answer to that question is Chief Tinty is within his budget, he's saving taxpayer dollars, he's thinking out of the box, he's using technology, he's stimulated more morale within the department and more opportunities for promotion. So I can't say...
Opening it up a little more to the press, I know,
Right.
he's had meetings with us and...
transparent, accountable,
Right.
and implemented new procedure in compliance with the state audit that recently,
Right.
was finalized. So he's an incredible asset to the city.
Let's just talk about a couple of hard things, not hard things, but you had a couple
You mean
of
you
pieces
didn't ask me hard things?
No,
at
not
this
yet.
point?
This is a couple of pieces of what you had described, or maybe not described, but considered signature legislation. Your relationship with the council this goes to, right?
Yes, sir.
And a couple of those, the tenant law, or the Tenant Accountability Act, as you refer to it, and the landlord law, sort of, they're still floating around.
The
but they're not-
rental certificate.
Rental certificate,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, they're still floating around, but there isn't this. I guess the rental certificate thing is still in committee, and so is the But they didn't get to the council floor yet. Well, one did, but got sent back. So tell me about that.
I've recently met with Jimmy Noble and Tom Hoppe. What we're going to do is, as I tried to explain to Council Majority Leader Tom Hoppe, during the campaign, I made pledges to do certain things.
The ethics law will add to this.
Ethics law would
right.
be one of, but the two pieces of quality of life legislation.
Yeah.
And I think what happened is that, as I explained to him, I have no problems with my proposals in committee and spending months in deliberating. What I saw recently at the council meeting I attended, and I actually thanked that individual I saw at the gym recently for attending. You had 3 people who were opposed to a proposal of mine, the Tenant Accountability Act, and you had 1 who spoke in favor.
Right.
And the 3 who spoke against it were right on point because they didn't understand the legislation. And that's why the committee system has to work with the mayor to ensure that the information is being represented properly. And after I explained to this gentleman who I saw at the gym recently, he understood. He says, if you deal with these issues, he says, I feel that this proposal will be supported. But what I did to the council representatives when I spoke to them recently, I said, you're the legislative body. I have no proposed legislation. I'm here to work with you. So what we've done is we've decided to ensure that prior to proposals going out there and on both ends, that we're going to meet regularly and we're going to ensure that we work efficiently for the city as a whole and that we remove politics, from the process, because the public doesn't want politics. They don't want fighting, they don't want bickering, they want cooperation between the mayor and the legislative branch.
Right.
And the mayor wants it, and I know the majority leader and the council members do. We want to move the city forward productively.
And sometimes there has been, and sometimes there hasn't.
No
I mean, that's just part of
I
the
think it's a new process.
Yeah.
There's a new mayor, there's new council members.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all going to be good. We're going to move in the right direction. What's interesting now about this now is you take the rental safety certificate piece of legislation, and I've already explained this to Tom and other members of the council. In about 3 weeks, I'm going to be holding a press conference. And I'm going to demonstrate that the concern on the part of council persons Dunn, Hafe, and Ball was that this particular law, because of the opposition from primarily landlords and property owners from outside the city who rent here, and primarily from what I could see from the letters of opposition I got, who all collect Section 8 low-income subsidies,
right,
okay, from tenants. What's going to be interesting is when at this press conference I showed that when I was asked to enforce the law, as it now stands with landlord registration, no problem. I can have the code enforcement inspect either a minimum of once every 2 years, or if I wanted to, I could have it once a quarter. And when I made that suggestion, I was told by some members of the council that it's retaliatory, it's punitive.
right.
That wasn't my point. My point is I'm trying to speak to those absentee landlords who are registered, who did rent to several of the 112 individuals who were picked up on clean sweep. So those individuals are going to be receiving in the next few weeks nuisance tickets.
You've said that,
Okay.
under the nuisance,
Under the nuisance abatement law.
Right.
Those landlords, if they're registered, that's fine. If they're not registered, they're going to get a second ticket
Right.
for not registering.
So if we can take care of this.
And I'm going to be publishing their names.
Okay.
And I'm going to underscore that it's not about registration, it's about enforcement. And then it's about treating landlords with respect, tenants with respect. If you do it once a quarter, I'm going to ask the building department to not charge any inspection fee, okay? And basically, all right, as I hope the public will see and the council will see, that the proposal was well intended. If you have issues with it, again, it gets back to what I said
The rental
earlier.
certificate.
Let's work them out.
Okay.
But
So you haven't given up on that?
I'm confident, no.
No.
I haven't. But I'm confident but again, I can have the building department do quarterly
Do other
inspections.
things anyway.
That's correct.
Right.
And it's not to, if you're pardon the expression, jam up a landlord or interfere with their property investment.
Right.
But when I see out of 112, several of them are registered landlords, and those 112 we picked up in clean sweep for their gang and drug-related activity, and that they're also collecting Section 8, I start to get cynical that they don't want the inspections for that reason or for those reasons.
A couple of, just to another topic, a couple of other, a few questions came in, and this, on the same topic, and people are asking, they want an update on the fire department investigation, and particularly former Chief Salzman and Ray. Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, I can tell your viewers this. Chief Salzman and former Chief Ray's, at this point, the District Attorney of Ulster County, Mr. Carnwright, is investigating allegations of potential criminal wrongdoing with regard to their time and attendance accruals. I don't have the outcome of the investigation. It's my understanding, talking to the investigators assigned to the cases, that's coming soon. With respect to former Chief Chris Ray, as you're well aware, he's filed an Article 78 petition seeking reinstatement, okay, of his assistant chief position, not the fire chief position he was provisionally appointed to. And as a matter of fact, today I have to sign off on the papers that we're going to be filing with the court in opposition to his petition. And I can just state specifically for your viewers that the allegations or the defenses that are raised in Mr. Ray's petition are clearly false. And I'm confident, okay, that the public will see that that what was done in the public's best interest, and that I had specific factual information, okay, to proceed. And that's all I can comment on now, because again, it's in the hands of the DA, the alleged criminal issues. And with regard to Mr. Ray's current petition, you'll see about it what I'm stating in the papers that'll be filed today with the court. Okay. And I'm certain you'll follow up with me after you see the
you'll
what's
pretty certain
in my affidavit.
That's pretty certain.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, and also too, to remember, the state controller is still doing an audit in conjunction with the District Attorney of Ulster County, not only the fire department, but also they expanded it to the BPW, which is going very well. There's, at this point, no discrepancies or no concern that there was any kind of fraud or wrongdoing, but we expanded the scope to our other biggest city agency.
Other city
At the
agencies.
request of the state controller.
Right, I think it was DPW. But
Yes,
they
sir.
were doing the police already.
Yes, sir. Remember, the police department's audit, we have until July 2nd to respond to the state,
Okay,
to the state controller.
okay. This sinkhole issue on Washington Avenue is just one that seems to a never-ending source of angst. Not so much for the people on Washington Avenue, because I hear they like it. No traffic.
Well, that depends if you were
except
Ronaldo
for-
Bella's Pizza.
Except for the businesses, right?
Right. So I don't know who's, I'd like to know if they do like it, I'd just be.
I know. It seems like it's gonna get expensive to fix this thing. There's been a little bit of suggestion, both last night at the council meeting and in a phone call I got from a town supervisor over in the town of Ulster, Mr. Quigley, that he's suggesting, why doesn't New York City pick this up? They're the ones who built that tunnel that's fallen apart, it's 100 years old, but, that's the suggestion. What do you think about that?
I appreciate Supervisor Quigley and I spoke recently about that, and that's been discussed in this building for a while.
Yeah,
The issue is whether or not there's a nexus or some kind of causal relation between the sinkhole and the tunnel. At this point, not really clear. I mean, the tunnel was installed in 1910, it's my understanding, as part of by the then New York State Water Authority Board, which was the precursor of the Department of Environmental Protection in the city of New York. And it was essentially, it's appurtenant to Kingston, connecting the Ashokans watershed project. Our problem is we have our upper watershed in Kingston, and remember, Kingston for the most part is built on a rock with several aquifers, particularly in Washington Avenue, according to our engineer. I think there's 2 of them,
right.
3 of them, okay, in Washington Avenue. So what you have is from the Twin Ponds, Golden Hill area, coming in through Main Street, Tannery Brook, you have this stormwater, and prior to the MS4, which I drafted when I was an assistant court counsel, which is a requirement that stormwater pollution prevention plans be submitted to planning as to what the practices will be to control stormwater. Okay, there was no concern for the effect of this upper watershed stormwater problem coming down into uptown Kingston. So what you had then in the 90s, they redirected that flow from the Esopus Creek to the Rondout, which in effect is probably, even though it was an attempt to mitigate the stormwater upstream, if you're pardon the expression, of town, it exacerbated the problem downtown, particularly in Lower Wilbur and the lower part of Wilbur Avenue. So you have a situation where the sinkhole, which is, I think it's 40 feet from the tunnel, the shaft, it's like a funnel, and it's 100 foot of sand and clay, and with the aquifer and the rock. And it's coming down into a funnel, and then when it comes down near the tunnel we've observed with our camera down there, Paul, a hole and leak. And the idea would be, it gets back to DEP in a second, the idea would be that we have to go in there, I think it's about 150, 160 feet in that tunnel.
Oh, that tunnel,
Put
right.
a 10-man crew in there and fix with a liner
Right.
the interior of that tunnel to stop the leaks, to stop the water with the holes.
So $1.6 million.
Correct. Now, that stated, that's where Quigley and I were talking the other night with the engineer the day before yesterday. Our position is going to be, putting together a letter for the DEP outlining that we feel when it was put in there in 1910, it's the responsibility of New York City's DEP to maintain an aging infrastructure, which is causing us potentially problems, even though I started the discussion by saying we're not clear of its nexus, of its connection. But
Well, we're fixing it.
but
right?
we're fixing it.
Yeah.
So, and if we don't fix it, it could possibly lead to, who knows what the problems could be.
So you think New York City ought to pay for this?
So I think New York City should be responsible for at least reimbursing the city for the cost of repairs of the tunnel that they installed in 1910. Now, Greg Swansea from Economic Development, I believe that hopefully the meeting last night, he was in contact with federal officials yesterday from the Commerce Department with FEMA monies.
To get a grant.
We're trying to get, we could be eligible for 1.1 or a little over $1 million. Okay, and I'm praying that that happens because we fit all the criteria under this Commerce FEMA grant. So you take that, you take also too, if we could get any reimbursement from the city DEP, it would certainly offset the cost of the.
You're in the Mayor Bloomberg about this, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
We'll see what kind of response that I get.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
You never know.
I'm sure it'll be cordial.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll too.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions then? Anybody?
We got some questions about the race situation that's been addressed. There's one about CSX right there.
During the debates, that one, during the debates, all the candidates entertained, what, I can't read it. One should read it to them.
I have an accent. All right. It says, during the debates, all three candidates entertained the idea of meeting with CSX to address horn noise.
Okay.
Would you be willing to arrange a public forum with CSX reps on this issue and other sources of noise pollution around the city? Please, it's getting to where you can even enjoy a summer breeze through an open window while trying to sleep, says Ward Niner.
Okay.
That would be in response to Ward Niner. Your council person is Debbie Brown. What you should be doing is you should be following up with her, okay? And she should, with the other council persons, with those residents being affected by the CSX rail traffic, okay, we should put together a public forum, okay, and invite CSX officials. I have no problems with that, but the residents have to understand that if it's a ward-related problem, they have to go through their council person, who then can help frame the issue, and I'm more than happy to work with them to that end and to invite CSX officials here.
It's long been a complaint, though, you know that.
It's been a real long complaint, and from what I gather too, there has been some attempt by CSX
Yes.
to limit that noise pollution to, unfortunately, the late hours when you do want to keep your window open, all right, and sleep. It's a complicated issue. We don't have the money for the soundproofing burners, etc.
Yeah.
But it's something certainly I'm not opposed to.
And there's a couple of developers who think building housing right next to the train tracks ain't such a bad idea, right?
And that developer, it's my understanding, I think the alderman in the ward affected for that development is Bill Carey. He's stated publicly that he's been in contact with Congressman Hinchy to see whether or not money can be provided, and Rupco too, for some kind of the noise barrier. Now, with the noise pollution, just a response to Ward 9, I was talking to our assistant court counsel Dan Gartstein yesterday. We are, every Tuesday, we have our code calendar, and I used to prosecute those code cases in city court for 8 years. Gartstein was telling me yesterday, Mr. Gartstein yesterday, that we're getting a lot of, police officers are issuing a lot of curfew violations, open container, quality of life, but also noise complaints. And the public has to know there is a noise ordinance. So during certain times of the evening, okay, and up until a certain point, okay, please be respectful of other neighbors, because people don't realize, all right, okay, what this does to someone else's use and the enjoyment of their property.
Right.
So I just want everyone to understand out there, we are pursuing it. They are taking complaints. Individuals will be prosecuted and could be subject to a fine.
Speaking of,
so you got to call the police. That's what I'm saying. You got to contact police. Ward Niner, anyone else who's CSX aside, we can deal with that at a public forum. But if you're dealing with this on an ongoing basis, you have to call the Kingston Police Department, and I'm confident Chief Tinty, it will be addressed.
Speaking of the Rupco project, they recently formed an artist panel or artist review committee. I think that's what they're talking about forming, and will start interviewing people for housing at this particular, at the Lace Factory building, 75% into the construction of this building, if it occurs. But what do you think about that? Forming this artist review committee, and specifically targeting this place for a certain population? I mean, we know we do it with veterans and disabled and senior citizens. This is a whole new category. What do you think about that?
It is interesting. That's true. It is a new category, it seems.
For the city, anyway.
For the city, yeah. I support the project wholeheartedly. I think it's going to be a necessary anchor for Midtown and Cornell Street there. It continues the lofts that Mike Piazza has developed next to the post office. However, I would like opportunity to maybe reach out to ask the Artist Society of Kingston and Uptown artists and Midtown artists and just get a sense of how they feel about it. And I'd like the opportunity to sit down with Kevin O'Connor and just, if necessary, just convey the concerns on the part of prospective tenants who may be artists and try to make sure the criteria, if it's going to go that way, is going to be transparent, open, and fair for everyone. So it is interesting. It is something new to the city. But secondly, okay, I will speak to Kevin about it at RUPCO, the director of RUPCO, and I would like to reach out and I would ask any viewers within the artist community, please contact my office, or any other citizens, contact my office, please, and have me get your opinion. Because as I stated earlier, what's frustrating as mayor is that often you don't get the opposition until after, and criticism after something's done. I'd rather have it up front when the idea is being discussed. And what I really am disappointed about at city council meetings, for instance, when you only have 4 or 5 people there, and Paul, you see it every month. Yeah. And sometimes it's the same citizens, you know, God bless them, but we need to have more citizen involvement. People have to get involved. They have to go up to the council. They have to hold my feet to the fire. They have to hold the council's feet to the fire. Right. So that we can have open, transparent government that's responsive to everyone's needs with this issue as well.
But why do you think that? Why do you think people don't do that? You know, I mean, I know. I think I know. It's because the people's got this idea. You can't fight City Hall. Why bother?
Unfortunately, that's the stereotype. The apathy comes also too. They look at the national scene. They look at the state scene, and at least, thank God, Governor Cuomo, okay, is right on point with him trying to make necessary reform and restructure government for obvious reasons. But locally here, I think there's been more apathy. We've had some scandals within city government, unfortunately, and that's a shame, because that's only one bad apple, if you pardon the expression. Mm-hmm. Okay, now maybe 2 more. All right, as we're aware of the fire department. So I think the apathy, because of the infighting, the bickering, and the lack of cooperation at the national and state level, and then here in city government, as I stated earlier, when you see the mayor and the council just disagreeing and arguing about just a couple pieces of legislation without really, and then using the press to volley back and forth, that's not productive. It turns people off. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm hopeful, I'm confident after meeting with members of the council recently, and the majority leader and the president, that we're going to be able to move forward. And hopefully that will be able to attract people to want to come to a city council meeting. Right. It's a long answer, and I don't have the answer.
I kind of find it back and forth entertaining.
Entertaining the what?
I mean, you said
the council and the mayor, yeah, but the public doesn't. After the while, the public says, you know what, come on. All right, work together. Yeah. You know, put party and egos aside. Bottom line, straight up, let's work together.
Got any other one?
I got a small follow-up on the rate thing, just to put it together. What time are you responding to that one, by the way? Just because I keep getting questions on this.
Sometime today.
All right.
It's got to go out today.
All right. It says, with the understanding that the city will respond directly to Chris Reyes' lawsuit today, will the mayor commit to reimburse the city for the cost of the lawsuit if the city loses?
To reimburse
the taxpayers.
To reimburse the taxpayers for what?
If the city loses.
I think what the guy means is if the city loses the lawsuit.
Actually, I'm pretty confident otherwise, and quite frankly, okay, what we're doing is we're protecting the taxpayers' interest, because what Mr. Ray did was unconscionable. Mr. Ray, okay, allegedly, and I'm confident that I have the factual evidence, committed misconduct and incompetence. So he can have his day, the city will have its day, and the answer is we will not reimburse the taxpayers, because the overwhelming majority of the taxpayers, with the exception of obviously a supporter of Mr. Ray, support what the mayor did in that issue, because in that issue, okay, we have the evidence that we obtained from the State Office of Fire Prevention showing serious discrepancies, okay, with his time and attendance.
Right.
So why would the mayor make a public statement and commitment that we're going to reimburse the taxpayers for what? Doing our job, protecting the taxpayers' interests? That question is clearly someone who supports Mr. Ray, which is their prerogative,
Right.
but is really off base given what the facts are with this issue.
And you will have all this in your response.
That is correct. That's correct. And I think it's going to be very interesting, because when the public sees the response, I think they're going to.
Well, we're going to see it hopefully tomorrow.
They're going to support,
Yeah.
okay, what I just stated.
All right.
That question came, by the way, from Patrick Stevens. I have another one from Paul Rakoff, who says, jobs. How many have been created since you took office? What is in the works? What has Mr. Swansea been doing since being hired?
150, as I stated earlier, Mr. Rakoff. I started that project's negotiation back in December, completed it in January. From the Stavo and Wolf Tech, two high-end manufacturers with international clients. Wolf Tech has an operation in Germany. Both these companies probably are $40–50 million sales plus, 150 employees at the site going in, 50 more with Wolf Tech, okay, within 18 months. Another business, Bronx Soda Pop, okay, the Bronx Soda Pop company, 10 employees were hired recently. We provided funding through KLDC. All right, they set up over at Always Moving around the corner on Grand Street.
Right.
They're doing phenomenal. They sell their product at Adams. They're in the process of using that site as a distribution center, which will be expanding more employment. In answer to the question, Mr. Rakoff, what's Mr. Swansea done? Well, I'll tell you, he's put in for a $15 million grant with DOT, which we're waiting on. We will have a shot at it. Who knows? Also, too, he's been writing several grant applications, okay, for things like the sinkhole, okay, which do precipitate construction jobs. In terms of economic development overall, there's 3 or 4 leads Mr. Swansea's working on right now that I'm not going to publicly state, which will also precipitate and result in more employment. So I think since January 1, the AVR, if everything goes to skip, that's 50 construction jobs in the short term. To build that project, we'll have 2,000 jobs, construction jobs, create a new neighborhood of 4,000 residents with purchasing power of $20 million, provide 3 taxing authorities with $10 million. That's the city, the county, and the school district, respectively. So I think in the first 6 months, and with what Mr. Swansea's doing, and what we're doing every day to try to promote, Mr. Swansea was out yesterday looking at several locations for a very high-end company, okay, who wants to move into Kingston because they don't have enough space outside of Kingston. So I'm pretty confident with what's been done and where we're going on the horizon, that we're doing the best we can. And people should understand that the national economy is not too well now. The state is number 50 throughout the entire United States in economic development. And there's reasons for that. With the bureaucratic mess that exists and the red tape that complicates a developer's projects. And I think also that what we're going to do is with the KLDC, there's a couple of new ideas we have with regard to a loan fund, a micro loan fund, that I'm going to talk about with KLDC members, okay, that will stimulate business, okay, in the digital corridor of Broadway.
Just another topic. You got to put a budget together. This will be your first
Yes,
year
sir.
For next year, 2013 would be our first budget. Within the course of doing that budget, there's contracts that have to be worked out, right, with 3 unions.
Yes, sir.
And so I know it's kind of early, but not really. I mean, their contracts expired December of last year.
Yes, sir.
How's that going?
2 of the units, I'm sitting down with CSCA probably, I think is it the latter part of this month or next? getting some dates with the fire department local, and then the police department local. So in the next 2 months, we'll be at the table, which is exactly the time I'll be preparing the budget. And as a background, what I've already explained to the 3 bargaining units, it costs the city $700,000 a week to run the operation. Every point on the budget of $150,000 equals 1 point of a tax increase or budget increase. So now let's follow this. I got from the Empire plan for the health insurance plan for our retirees and our employees, looks like the increase is going to be pretty close to $600,000 to $700,000 next year. We're paying $600 grand a month for that benefit. That's $7 million a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The pension costs are going to go up probably $500,000. That's 1.1 right there, right? $1 million. Then we add the unfunded mandates, which those two are unfunded mandates, those two facts. Then you have the safety net, which is 1.6 million, and I'm looking at probably another 500 grand, put me at the 2 million mark for that. So now you do the math, okay? Add that every 150,000, 1%.
Right.
This is what we're left with, and we're left with the prior administration now, mind you, that I've explained to the unions as well. 950 grand was taken out of the fund balance. I've got to put that back in to have a zero balance for purposes of.
Has some of that been put back in?
Some of it. And
500,000.
Some 950,000.
No, 500.
500. Well, no, it was literally over $1 million, but they settled on 950.
Okay.
So the answer is no. But so we have to rely on sales taxes. We have to increasing. They are increased. They are up compared to last year by I think it's $100,000 at that. We have to rely on any other monies we get, grants, etc., which we're working on, as I stated, with Swansea. So you put this financial, as Charlie Land used to say, tsunami together.
Yes.
Okay, so it's incumbent upon my administration and the unions to cooperate and work together.
So with all that, what do you guess? You think tax increase for your first budget 2013?
I can't say, but if you figure out the math, see the 2% cap was well intended, but short-sighted because it took into account none of the unfunded mandates that local governments.
That's the Governor Cuomo idea, right?
Yeah, but Governor Cuomo, to his credit, when I was at NICOM back in January at a conference, Governor Cuomo specified publicly that he had the commitment from Speaker Silver and Majority Leader Skelos. Well, that didn't happen.
Right.
And unfortunately, okay, you can't blame the governor because the unfunded mandates come from the legislature. And they're the ones who are establishing, okay, a rich array of benefits.
So with all that, do you think that you'll be able to stay, though, under that 2%?
I can't say. It's gonna be, let me just say, it's going to be extremely difficult unless I can really get, even with the cooperation of the unions. I mean, because...
Should they change more for their health?
Yes. We'll be focusing on issues like that. There's work schedules. I'm going to be focusing at the negotiations on operational provisions of each collective bargaining agreement, which result in cost to the taxpayer. There's ways that we could reduce overtime in the fire department. There's issues of contributing for your health insurance. There's issues of unlimited sick in the fire department and police. Okay, there's issues of payments for a firefighter to be an EMT when that's part of their job. Okay, they get an additional payment every year. They have to be an EMT to be qualified to be a firefighter. So it's not that I'm trying to pick on the fire department or the police officers or the CSEA, but we're in this together. The public can't sustain this course. The post-employment retirement and health benefits for the city employees and retirees, literally, right now, is a little over $100 million projected out 30 years from now. City can't sustain that. We have a $39 million budget, and we both know that it's not going to be easy, but we're going to do everything we can to try to keep the bottom line with spending for the reasons stated and ask the employees to cooperate at the table, and it's not going to be easy.
Right. You did mention, we got any more?
We got a couple I can relay in.
Okay.
This is from John. I'm just going to say, why are you supporting anti-landlord laws that violate private property rights and tenant privacy rights?
Well, actually, in response to John, these laws do not violate landlords' rights because there's a law called landlord registration. And John, if you haven't registered, you're going to get a ticket issued to you. Okay, it's as simple as that. Landlord registration entitles the city. This has been upheld by the courts of New York. The Third Department upheld it as constitutional, upheld the registration process, upheld the fee that you have to pay, upheld the right of the city to inspect. As long as you register, we have the right to inspect once every 2 years. I'm going to propose, as I stated earlier, that it's done once a quarter. And if John is a good landlord, which I'm assuming he is, what problem is he going to have about having the inspection and complying with the law? With respect to the tenants, it's pretty simple. I get more calls from landlords every week, and people coming in here, landlords with pictures, showing me how these properties are trashed, okay, how water's left on when they vacate the premises, how they leave the lights on, how they leave the heat on, and they turn the windows up, how they punch holes in the wall, how they basically trash, okay, a property owner's investment. So I'm trying to establish a level playing field, not only for landlords, property owners, but also for tenants. So with all due respect, it's not a violation of the Constitution because these laws have been upheld by state court and federal court.
Speaking of tickets, getting tickets, have you gotten any parking tickets lately?
No, I haven't.
No.
No, I haven't. I've been very, very diligent, okay, to ensure that there's
I
plenty
don't know,
of
but you got an aggressive parking giver up in Uptown, don't you?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
he's doing a fine job.
ADR, the whole promenade issue, I guess.
Yes, sir.
It sort of did come out of blue. Originally, the plan had called for, the developer to build this on his own. There was no, I went to meeting after meeting of this thing for 9 years, and there was no mention of them using public funds to build the thing. How did that come about? I mean, there are some who say, this is a for-profit developer, taxpayers shouldn't be, taxpayers shouldn't be helping them out. How did that come about?
When you look at what, I think it was one of the other viewers had a question about economic development, when you take that as your benchmark, the project, you're correct, 9 years, $12 million, Mr. Perna has spent in the approval process. From that, the promenade was supposed to be part of the build-out.
Right.
In stages. Because of the market, the real estate market, and what's going on in the housing market, Mr. Perna had thought that, and from an economic development standpoint we agree, that by putting the promenade in now, it'll generate an interest, okay, in the project, and at the same time provide sales tax from individuals who will be going there, access to the public, to that promenade where they'll be able to have access on North Street. It'll take you all the way into East Kingston. It's a project that could not only result in the short term with gain and benefit for the city economically and access to the river, but in the long term, it could stimulate, as I stated earlier, a project with 4,000 new residents, $20 million in purchasing power, $10 million in taxes to 3 taxing authorities, which is what we desperately need. So we took that all into account, what kind of stimulus this would have for economic development in our local economy, and what benefit it would have to the public.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the concern of the public now, first of all, Mr. Perna, we had discussion recently, and there are issues of concern for those who, even though they support the project, they feel that it's not ready. And in response to those individuals, after this meeting, and I'm confident that Mr. Perna, these issues of concern that have been raised recently.
You mean an informational meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
And by that time, at the informational meeting, and essentially, okay, before the filing of any CFA application on the governor's consolidated funding application process,
right,
those issues will be publicly addressed, and I'm confident, okay, that after that, the project will be well received even by those who currently oppose it.
Yeah.
But can I ask this too now, and I want assurances to the public, any individual who is concerned about these issues and supports the rail trail as a priority. I just want to state that for 6 months, I've spent with Corporation Counsel negotiating, okay, an agreement between the Trolley Museum and the Land Trust. We're close. There's one issue now that's been raised with where the exit point will be for the rail trail.
There are a lot of other issues.
There's issues of concern that the residents in the affected part of the trail in Ward 7 and 8 and 9, there's been no public outreach with those residents to ensure that the access and the inclusion in the trail will not compromise and affect their property in a manner that they find offensive. So until those issues are addressed.
You strongly support it?
I strongly support it, the funding.
All in the campaign and in various speeches that you make? I
have the funding, it's just, the due diligence is done along those lines with the public outreach, the agreement, the ensuring that inclusion and access of all will be as part of this project. The funding will happen. And Mike Klein and I, okay, have spoken about this. He's committed to the project. There's money available through the county, and I'll find the money, okay, for the project so that it does happen. Because I'm
not giving up on it.
I'm not giving up on it because it provides further connection from the Midtown area to the downtown area. It also connects to the Perna project, okay, by going down to the waterfront. So it's basically a project that would benefit the waterfront and the Midtown and bring new people into Kingston, tourists, generate sales taxes, but it has to be done in a manner that the public, okay, understands, is educated about it as to what its benefit is.
All right. Gallo?
Yep.
Go.
Got a general question from Roberto Lobianco. Says, what is the mayor's position regarding hydrofracking in New York State and also county in particular? Does the mayor support abandoning hydrofracking in Kingston?
Yes. We, at this point, our sewage treatment plant will not accept any fracking waste or byproduct from that process. We don't want to have problems with our capacity at our treatment plant. And at this point, yes, I am opposed to fracking and accepting the waste in the city of Kingston.
And then there was a policy, there was something adopted, right? By the
prior administration, I think, Ralph Swenson, our engineer, I recall, I think you're right, Paul, that there was either a memorializing resolution
well, they wouldn't
or something. Well, I know there was a memorializing, I think it was a memorializing resolution along the line stated that we're not accepting its byproduct, its waste.
Right.
We're not doing it.
This is not on your radar thing, but it's sort of got a lot of attention in the news this week, and that is the arrest of this across the street of the vice principal of the high school on possession of marijuana charges, and then reduced to parking violations the other day. But the school district had gone ahead and fined this vice principal $5,000 and 15 days pay. Well, I mean, you must be, you read the papers, you look at that, you must have an opinion about that. What do you think about that?
Well, it's unfortunate.
I mean, you think that penalty was harsh on part of the school district?
Well, considering what the outcome in court was, when you reconcile the two, yes. And some have spoken to me, and the argument is that what he does on his own time, or anyone who's their own business, I'm not condoning it. I think the problem for the school district is that, and that individual, I know my son went to the high school, is revered, is praised. The kids love him. He's a great guy and a great educator and an asset to the school district. But I think the problem for the superintendent is that it doesn't send a good message, okay, to the kids. Because if we're telling our kids not to do that stuff, then those of us in positions of authority have to be cognizant that we're held to a higher standard. It's unfortunate, but yet it's a reality, and therein lies, I think, why the superintendent was compelled to do what he did, albeit the penalty is rather harsh, okay, considering the manner, as I stated earlier, how it was disposed of in
He's
court.
officially convicted of a parking ticket.
Yes. Well, actually, there's no conviction if it's a parking ticket.
I mean, well, he pled.
He pled guilty to a parking ticket. Yeah, it's usually with the, what was it, unlawful possession of marijuana, a UPM?
Violation.
It's a violation, usually a $100 fine.
Right. This was $200, fine.
But that's usually what it is.
But the school district's fining him $5,000 and 15 days pay.
That's pretty harsh.
Okay.
Yes. But I understand why, the dilemma that the school district finds itself in,
Mm-hmm. Right.
for the reasons stated.
There is other repairs going on in the city, and that is just above us, and we hear the noise going on here.
No, you don't hear it now.
No, I don't.
You
It
did.
must be on lunch.
Is it? Yeah, they might be.
Yeah, okay. We're fixing the tower, right?
Yes, sir.
How's that going? I mean, is the cost in the ballpark, or are we gonna be spending more on this too? or
The
what?
prior administration apparently has bonded for stage one, which is the exterior of the tower. But then there's gonna have to be funding requested for the interior of the council chambers, because if you notice behind President Noble's
It's
desk,
cracks.
the lunette, correct? The gold leaf is peeling off.
Yep.
So there's gonna be the necessity, of course, to be able to fix. I mean, let's face it, $8 million was spent renovating this building. It's a historical landmark. And we have to make sure that the integrity of this building, which was here for, I believe my late little brother, when he was mayor, I think his goal was to ensure that this building would serve as an anchor and a bridge between downtown and
That
uptown.
was repeated over and over again.
And I'm adamant. I mean, you know, I grew up right around the corner here, and my mom still lives there, and we used to walk down to this building. My father was in the city council, so it's very dear to the Gallos, but I think it's very, very, very dear to the citizens who remember the post office, okay, when that was demolished, and remember a day of Kingston where these beautiful buildings were maintained, and it's part of the charm of Kingston, bringing people to Kingston. And anyone who's ever come in this building is just overwhelmed
Yeah.
of how beautiful it is. So,
Speaking of your little brother, you think he'd be proud of your first 6 months?
yeah, yes, I think he would. It's a different time. He was fortunate when he served as mayor. The issues of finance weren't as just overwhelming. The quality of life issues weren't as dramatic. And albeit though, when he was elected, he did quite a bit, okay, to ensure that the city was beautified, which I resurrected that committee, that the city was safe. We had beat cops back then. You had a horse patrol. Now, we don't have the money for the horse patrol, but Chief Tinty, God bless him, has put those beat cops back out there.
Right.
So I think he would be proud of me, but he'd be shaking his head saying, I don't know if I want to be there now. He said, you know, because of the issues, they're complicated, the public is frustrated, they have demands, and they should. They want their elected officials to be transparent. I think he was. They want them to be accountable. But it's difficult to meet their needs because you don't have the money. And the feds and the state aren't shaking loose any money, okay, for what you need to do.
Right.
So I think he'd be proud, but I think he'd also be just, it's not a good time. But yet it is, in my opinion, I think, now that I think about it, because it gives the opportunity. These challenges, we have solutions, but I can't do it without working with the public.
Right.
And-
What, you know?
Yeah, I got a couple. Let me just track back so we can go in order.
Something new.
I have a question from Joe Atheist.
Joe Atheist.
Joe Atheist. Okay, that's all right.
It says,
Nothing wrong with that.
he asks, what should the First Amendment mean for people who don't subscribe to the same religious beliefs as some area churches that insist on ringing loud bells daily and subjecting area residents to the singing and preaching when opening their doors during Mass time?
Well, Joe Atheist, I can understand that you may be offended by that, but in all due respect, the First Amendment gives others the right to freely exercise their religious beliefs. Be that as it may, just like you have a right to not believe in a creator. So it's been a long debated issue about the bells. And I live down on the Rondout, and there are several churches there, and on Sunday morning there's a symphony, an orchestra of church bells. It's something that you have to, unfortunately for you, Joe, you're going to have to live with, because constitutionally those individuals and members of those respective churches have the right to freely exercise their religious beliefs.
I got another one. I don't Don't pretend to understand this one. Is there any truth to the rumor that 80 Marius, designed by the same architect as City Hall, has been declared a historical landmark?
I'm sorry, would you reread that?
I don't.
Oh, sorry. 80 Marius,
A.V. Marius.
designed by the same architect. I'm just relaying the question.
Oh, Marius? Wasn't he the,
Yeah.
wasn't he the original,
For City Hall?
designer? Yeah. I think.
I don't have
I don't know.
No,
All right, I'll look into it later.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I can't respond to that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just relaying that one. That's all I got so far right now.
What
Do I still have the uptown canopies and yard?
Yeah, there is I think Guy Kemp or somebody, it was Guy Kemp from Rocco, came to the, I think he might have been there.
Yes, I was.
And
Yes,
he's
sir.
pushing for, or presenting a possibility of creating this public art thing, where there would be this commission that would be set up and then would, artists or sculptors and others would come before them, and they would make decisions on putting up murals on vacant buildings and, sculptures in parks and things like that. What do you think of that? He says other cities have done it.
Yeah, I think he and I talked about it after the meeting, and if I recall, it started back in New York City in the 1890s.
Yeah.
As I explained then, speaking to the artist community, there is a concern that a commission of artists could be construed that, depending upon your relationship or depending upon what is perceived to be art, could affect whether your art will be publicly displayed. So, assuming that you could get a commission out of the mix, I wouldn't see anything wrong with the discussion by the council, laws and rules, or public safety, government ops committee, to just have a discussion, but ask the Artist Society of Kingston, invite uptown artists, okay, invite any artists now, okay, in the Midtown area. Our problem is our artist community in the city of Kingston that I'm finding over the past several months is so diverse and eclectic, there is no consensus. And uptown doesn't always know what downtown's doing. Downtown artists aren't connected to the O Positive Festival that's run by the uptown artists. The Midtown Artist Group, they're not really vocal at all at this point, but with the exception of a couple of studios and Black Creek and some other companies over there to do some very high-end, really cool art that people in the city don't even have a clue, that's internationally recognized. So I think the commission, if we can get that out, and the concern and the cynicism that fosters, and have a good, reasonable debate, and invite all the artists, okay, to attend these laws and rules meetings, or even have a public hearing or forum where this information can be exchanged by members of the art community with members of the city council and myself. There's nothing wrong with it. Actually, I think it would help because we do have some issues where art is publicly displayed and then it's very difficult to get it removed to work with the artist. And then we have other issues where art's extended for a long period of time, and if it's an outdoor piece, and depending upon the materials, it becomes rusty, and it literally could become an eyesore or safety hazard.
So you wouldn't, would you support or not support?
A policy that took into account everything that I just stated and that was fair and open, as long as the artist community is invited into it and weighs in.
And
certainly.
Eventually led to more public art being displayed in the city.
Because if
murals on buildings.
Depending, okay? Because it could also speak to the graffiti mess that's ongoing, and maybe kind of channel, okay, those kids and art students into a far more productive kind of area, okay, and foster that cooperation with the artist community and stimulate, okay, the public, okay, with regard to what I call, art is like visual poetry. Mm-hmm. So it could mean different response from individuals. So it could be a touchy issue with some. So that's why I'm in favor of a forum, bring the artists together, council members, streamline the process, ensure that, okay, where we're going to put the art, okay, would be not only visually attractive, but there would be requirements as to its length of stay, And also too, we'd have to give some assurances to the artist. Because we've had public art displays, was it last year, the year before, down in Rotary Park?
Well, you always do, right? I mean, you have that biannual thing.
They were vandalized.
Yes, they were.
So it's something certainly that I would enjoy discussing with council members in the arts community, for the reasons stated.
I forgot whether or not, I think you said you did, but there is this grand plan, and it may happen, you never know, at the intersection of Colonel Chandler Drive and Albany Avenue there, you know, to redesign
The
that
587.
Yeah, to redesign the whole intersection to include a roundabout right there.
Yes.
What do you think of that? I don't know if you've ever weighed in on
The
that.
council passed, I was up there the night of the meeting, where we had citizens come in who were concerned, particularly members of the church on the corner right there.
Right. Oh, that's right.
And I reassured them that this design, the state has to be cognizant of their concerns. They have a handicap ramp right there, the church.
They were worried if that was
So,
gonna
and I
take
assured
away.
them, I said, the city would support to ensure that if this design does happen, and if it is reconfigured, it would be a benefit to the city, okay, because it would create a more visual and a more efficient access. And it would, from what we're being told by the experts, lessen the backlog and the traffic tie-up, from literally that intersection all the way to the corner of Clinton and Pearl, okay?
Right.
But those residents' assurances, those residents' concerns have to be spoken to. And it's incumbent upon the city to ensure the DOT, if this project goes forward, and with the county's help, that those concerns are addressed.
Isn't the part of plan to reverse the flow of uptown traffic also?
Oh, that's a good question, because with the traffic.
That's a different one.
Yeah, I've been working, Sue Cahill's been working with Dennis Doyle, though I just sent a communication to the council, Jimmy Noble, to refer to laws and rules and public safety, that we reconfigure Wall Street to go the opposite direction.
Right.
And we reconfigure Fair to go the opposite direction.
Right, that's been talked about for
Correct.
some time.
And the other, because part of this is a problem with marketing uptown, because people come in from out of the area, literally, they'll come in off the thruway, they'll come in on North Front Street from Washington Avenue.
Right.
And they'll make a right on Wall, they can't. They make their right on Fair, they go all the way down to where the office building is, county office building, and instead of making a right on Main and coming around, no, they go straight.
Oh, they go straight.
And they end up they end up going to Rhinebeck, or get back on Broadway and going up 28.
Right.
And I've had a number of restaurants uptown tell me, they've invited friends of theirs from Brooklyn and from the city, and they're frustrated at the street direction and the lack of signage. And what we're doing with the signage is, as part of our comprehensive plan, there's an interpretive study that will be looking at issues of signage. Our problem with signage in the city, it doesn't direct, it's cluttered, it needs to be consolidated, it needs to be simplified.
There's too many stop signs?
No, I'm talking signage in terms of
sign of
uptown,
where-
historic, Midtown,
oh.
UPAC, downtown, waterfront. So I'm setting up a committee of up, mid, and downtown businesses to weigh in on interpretive signage, okay, so that we can get tourists and other people coming to the city moving around. And the street, as your colleague here asked, the street reconfiguration is crucial to that end.
Right, to uptown.
You got it,
Right.
yes.
In combination with this thing?
Yes.
With the roundabout thing?
Well, the roundabout is a separate project in
Yeah,
terms
okay, I
of
know.
traffic flow and public safety.
Right.
But I support both. But as long as those residents and the uptown businesses, their concerns are met. And that's what we're trying to do.
No one? Anyone?
Yeah, I got, this is from Champ Duran.
From who?
Andy Champ Duran from the 3rd Ward. How you doing, Andy?
Yes. Will the proposed 1.63 million fix at Washington Avenue have any effect on property flooding upstream along Linderman Avenue?
That I can't answer. Ralph Swenson would have to weigh in there, but from what I'm being told, Andy, the brook is going to be also, there's going to be work on the brook relining. I can't address that, and I'd have to follow up with Ralph as to the impact over in your neck of the woods there in Ward 3.
I think they wanted to, and not only, I mean, they were talking about this last night, not only fix that tunnel, but they were gonna do some piping work too.
Well, in the brook, where I think
Yes.
Andy's coming from, we're gonna reline certain
Yes.
parts of the brook as it comes to
Yes.
Washington.
Right.
And then there was also gonna be some piping, as you said, too, to try to feed water into that funnel,
Yes,
okay, to get back down into the pipe,
that's what they were talking about
which is
last
80 to
night.
100 feet
That's
down.
part of the 1.6
So I think
million.
if Andy's talking about that, then yes, then we are addressing it. But if he's talking on the other side of Linderman, closer to Wall Street, no, that flooding issue and stormwater problem was redirected, as I stated earlier, in the 90s,
Right.
okay, to go from Esopus to the Rondout Creek. But if it's, Andy, if that's not satisfactory, please, give me a call and I'll have Ralph Swenson, our engineer on the project, respond to your question with a lot more specificity.
Okay. Anything else?
I wanted to ask, because we were talking about traffic and roundabouts, and Greenkill is the other one.
Oh, the Greenkill Avenue Bridge?
The 5 corners on the.
No, yeah, the wacky.
That was a
intersection
traffic
there.
study that, nothing's being done there, but there were some
Right.
very interesting recommendations from the Ulster County
Yeah, I
Transportation
recall that.
Council and Dennis Doyle.
But it never,
No.
nothing ever.
But at least, but I do believe that
I think it's just a cost thing, it's a money
correct.
thing, yeah.
Two parts of that proposal or recommendation, guys, if I recall, would be Wall and Fair Street. They were gonna be reconfigured. So,
Okay.
you know, Wall was going to be coming down the other way, and then you would go into Fair, okay, from that intersection. So instead of coming out from Fair into Greenkill, you'd be going into Fair,
Right,
you know, and instead of going in the Wall, you'd be coming out of the Wall on Green.
I'm told by the Freeman, this is on the Linderman Avenue thing, that the brook floods at Delta and Josephine.
It floods on Delta and Josephine?
Yep.
Well, it probably floods because, again, it's coming from the upper watershed. And if it's backed up on Washington, that doesn't surprise me. Again, if that viewer, they're gonna have to call my office, 334-3901, leave a phone number and their name, of course, and I'll have Ralph Swenson contact them about those particular questions.
What's the number again?
334
Give me 1 second, 334
3901.
3901.
Yes, sir.
oh, they had a phone call, okay. All right, you got any more?
No more questions from
Okay.
our readers right now?
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up.
I was gonna ask,
Okay. Yeah,
okay, ask this. Whatever happened to the CAT advisory task force?
the what, oh, cat advisory.
You have to ask the city council.
Yeah,
All right.
you didn't make that, right? No.
That's it.
No, and the problem with the CAT issue, just on a closing note with that, we don't have the money. And, you know, at this point, unless the council is in agreement, I can't justify the expense of about $20,000 a year. What was happening was, we were in contract with an individual who was doing good work and picking up feral cats, but then generating $90 to $200 worth of vet bills for the care, the treatment of the cat. And then those cats were adopted, and we never received any reimbursement, okay, or any money, okay, reimbursing us for what we had done with
For the vet bills.
That's correct. And at this point, unless I really have the health department tell me that the feral cat population is literally causing a public health problem, there's really not much I can do. And it's my understanding, though, people might want to consider this with regard to helping out stray cats or feral cats. If I'm not mistaken, I think under agriculture and market law, you feed a cat, you're responsible for its well-being.
You feed a cat, you're responsible.
You're responsible, you know, for an animal like that.
Right.
So, and they might want to check that out, but someone had stated that to me recently, so. I wish I could, but again, it gets back to Paul, as I stated to you earlier, an hour ago, the money is tight, and you have to prioritize government spending and taxpayer dollars, so for all those reasons, I would suggest anyone who wants the CAT Advisory Council to follow up with Jimmy Noble or the City Council. Actually, they're aldermen, they're council person. So
Right.
those viewers who are interested in that, contact your council person and they'll put it on the agenda of the council committee and that has authority over it, and it'll be discussed.
And Bob's seen it, he'll take care of it.
Be nice. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, I know.
Mr. Senior's doing a good job.
All right, so
Can I come
go ahead.
back to it? This is from Tony Adamus, who's our managing editor.
Oh, good.
He's going back on, he lives in the area of Linderman, and he says that it doesn't back up from Washington, this is the flooding. It backs up at Delta, where the stream crosses under.
Okay.
Yeah.
As I said, tell Tony to call me, okay, and we'll have Mr. Swenson give him a call and identify his issue. If Tony is in the 3rd Ward, that's the 3rd Ward, he should be calling his alderman, who I believe is Mr. Horowitz.
Right.
And Mr. Horowitz should be actually following up with regard to the answer to that question. Or he can call me and I'll have Ralph call him, but you should really be, again, we have to emphasize, I can do only so much. And when I get phone calls about different issues in different wards, what I do is I have to call the department head, okay, and then get back to the resident.
Well, I don't know, I heard you on the phone before
Correct.
talking about poison ivy.
Correct, that's
Getting rid of
correct,
some of
that's
the
correct.
poison-
But what I'm saying is, okay, streamline the process. You're correct. We had a citizen who was upset about someone's lawn and poison ivy is being addressed. But be that right, but the point is that the council, they're elected to represent those issues in each ward.
Yeah.
And they contact department heads daily and then get the information back to the constituents. And what I do is I'll have Ellen call the council person in that ward and say, Paul Kirby called. Could you give him a call? Here's his issue. I've already checked it out with building and safety, so that we're working together. But the public needs to have a face. They need to have someone to go to in the respective ward, so that they can also deal with the mayor's office as well.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap this up.
I got,
Well, yeah.
I just got the flood of late things. Got some 9
Go ahead,
minutes.
give him one.
This is kind of for you. It says that I sent Mr. Kirby 3 questions. None were asked to our AVR. Eastman on Kalanan, Talcun,
All right, hold on.
I think we talked extensively about AVR about 25
Yeah,
minutes ago.
I know.
Yep.
I think these are them, I just.
Almost about
don't
destination
see-
for the promenade, mobile barn.
Destination?
Are there plans for a destination of the promenade?
Yeah, the
If-
destination
AVR
ends in North
is-
Street and it ends in East Kingston.
Right, if, AVR Rights has written in their plan, to give, Mule Barn and adjoining kiln, back to the town of Ulster. It's the Mule Barn.
That's part of the actual build-out of the project.
Right.
It has no bearing nor relevance to the promenade project.
This would make a fabulous cultural center. Well, we did talk,
Well, actually,
they
the
did talk
answer,
about
the
that.
actual answer is yes. Mr.
Yeah.
Perna has stated publicly on several occasions as part of his plan for the build-out, there will be a Muleborn Educational Cultural Center. Supervisor Quigley and I have discussed the possibility of seeking funding because it could be a historical venue, because it
Right.
literally reflects the heritage of the manufacturing. I had a grandfather who worked in one of those brickyards at 8 years old. Okay, you had brickyards, you had cement plants, you had ice house. You had basically a diverse ethnic and racial population, Italians, blacks, Irish, Polish, all living and working down there on that area.
The East Kingston,
correct, so
House.
there's no doubt that not only would it be an appropriate site, I think it'd be a necessary site, and I'm glad and pleased that Mr. Perna has that in his plans for the build-out of the project.
Yeah, that's always been part of it, I think.
It's a really cool idea.
I
Okay.
got a couple,
Go ahead.
probably quick ones. Are there plans for all agendas and proposals to go on the city's websites in advance of the meetings?
I think that they are.
Actually, they are, and you can call the city clerk's office, okay, weekly, and we have on the bulletin board, okay, in the city clerk's office, what the committee meetings are for that day. The problem with the agendas often is that the chairman of the respective committees don't get us the agenda until the day before or the day of the meeting.
Yeah.
So that's on the council. So that
But
viewer,
committee
they could
agendas-
contact,
Yeah.
correct, it's on the site, the
Yeah.
website, city webpage, and you could also contact the city clerk's office and they'll get all the
This is
information
also-
they need.
Chandler. And does the city know about the possible logging in proximity to their water supply in Woodstock near the reservoir and treatment plant on Soccer Road.
Actually, if it's not city property and it's lawfully undertaken under New York law, there's really nothing the mayor or the city can do about it.
Right.
And I'm certain that if there's any issue, affecting the city's water supply up there with logging in proximity to the water supply,
It's been an issue in the past.
Superintendent Judy Hansen is on
Right.
it, and the water department is on it.
Okay, so, we're gonna wrap up.
All right, that's all I got.
Just sum up it, basically, you know, how you think you're doing, and do you like this job? What?
It's a challenge. I think given the circumstances and what we have, we're doing the best we can now. There's always room for improvement. I'll be the first to state that. If those who are viewing this today feel that there is room for improvement and you have concerns and issues, please contact my office. I'm here until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night usually, okay, and I return phone calls. But I'm excited because what I'm pleased about is that there just seems to be a vibe and an energy in the city, and we have all these exciting projects going on, and the community feels good. There's pride in the state's first capital, and I'm excited to be the mayor of a city that has this historical heritage, this beautiful waterfront, and the opportunities that we have to deal with these challenges. So it's a long answer to your question. Yes. I think that I'm doing okay, but there's always room for improvement, and I'd like to talk to anyone about those concerns. But overall, I'm enjoying the job, and I'm excited about trying to move Kingston forward. But I can't do it without the support of your viewers and members of the business community. And I want to thank them all for their support.
All right, we're good. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll do it again sometime.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
You're funny.